All right, what's up, guys? This is Brad with Display Fitness, and another opportunity to do talks with Coach John, or training talks with Coach John. I think that's what I'm gonna call the series.
Sure.
And I put up on my IG story, opportunity for somebody to ask questions. So got the question from I don't know how to pronounce it, brother. Shirags or Mirage. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but I do appreciate the question, and he wants to know about programming. So obviously that's a pretty broad brush question and something that would be very difficult to answer in kind of a short, condensed video clip like this is going to be. But just for the purposes of discussion, we kind of want to open up the floor and give you some kind of general concepts for programming. So for my experience, right, as a powerlifter, the thing that I look at is kind of a lot of the stuff that Chad Wesley Smith espouses from the Juggernaut system. So there's a lot of information out about that specifically that you can go kind of orient yourself to by watching his videos and things like that. But at its basis, he goes kind of for a phasic structure. So there's 3 separate phases to every training block.
Cycle.
The cycle?
Yeah.
Three blocks to every cycle, essentially. So beginning is hypertrophy, right, which is you're worried about muscle growth. So generally speaking, you deal with a little bit lighter weight, something in the ballpark of 70%, maybe up to maybe 80%, for rep ranges that deal with maybe like the 8 to say 12 rep range. Then beyond the hypertrophy phase, there's the strength phase, which you're dealing with higher intensity, but lower rep range. So intensity would be like 80, maybe 80% to maybe as high as 90, give or take.
Yeah.
These are just general parameters. And there you're dealing with rep ranges that are say like 4 to 6, something in that ballpark. And then they have the peaking phase, which is kind of what you do right before the event or right before you test out, so to find out how that cycle, that training cycle has developed you. And that peaking phase, you're dealing with kind of maximal and super maximal weights, upwards of 100% or 105% of your 1 rep max, in the rep range of like 1 to maybe 3. And so the peaking portion of the cycle is your shortest cycle because it's the hardest to sustain. Whereas the hypertrophy phase is kind of the longest portion of it, and that can be determined on your own personal schedule or whatever you have in mind. Typically, you pick a meet out in the future, and then build around from where you are currently in time to when that event actually happens, and figure out kind of backwards plan how you're going to break down your cycle. So that's programming kind of from a powerlifting standpoint. What do you think for like general type stuff?
Yeah, so another powerlifting template apart from the Juggernaut series that works very well is a system called 531 by Jim Wendler. It's been around for a long time. Plays off much of the same that he's talking about. The biggest thing you want to worry about there is that each phase builds off the previous phase. And what I mean by that is in 531, your first cycle, or your first week rather, is going to be 3 sets of 5. And then the next week is going to be slightly heavier, 3 sets of 3. And then the next week, the third week, is going to be a set of 5, a set of 3, and a set of 1. So you're just gradually taking off a little bit of volume more in the hypertrophy phase and edging down towards that max strength. Essentially exactly what Brad just talked about, but just on more of a truncated timeline. If you're looking more for general training and fitness, I think one of the best ways to do it is pick your bread and butter exercises. You want to alternate phases to where you have a little bit more volume and a little bit less volume. So think about that when you're setting up your set rep scheme. But essentially, what you want to get to from the beginning to the end of a cycle, so say 4 to 8 week time frame, is you want to have those given lifts and end about 10 to 15% stronger. So it can be very linear, and what I mean by that is just keeping the same set rep scheme, but just trying to beat the weight every single week. You'll find that you're running into a roadblock sooner or later, and that's a perfect sign to just change the exercise. Set rep scheme doesn't necessarily need to change, but as long as you're getting 10 to 15% stronger, the exercise you're using are working. Your nutrition's probably working, your sleep's going all right, and you're doing everything you need to do to continually progress over time.
Yeah, I mean, so looking at something as broad a topic as programming, can be a very difficult topic to broach, just because there's a lot of different subtleties and variety when it comes to programming. And more to the point, it's very important about what it is that you're doing. So the way that a triathlete might program is going to be very different than the way a powerlifter might program. So understanding that the goal that you have in mind is very, very important in terms of programming. So I think that anyone that's following my channel generally is looking for strength. So it's probably a very powerlifting dominant kind of an audience.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of people that are very interested in strongman. And then I know that there's a great number of guys that are males in your 30s, 40s, and maybe a little bit above, that are kind of looking to regain some strength, get training if they've been detrained for a little while. And these are all principles that you can apply to yourself, whether you plan on going to compete in a powerlifting meet or not, or you're just looking for more general kind of general stuff. Both those kinds of concepts, so the Juggernaut and the 5-3-1, are both going to be systems that will help you. The biggest thing that I would recommend to you guys is to not get overly attached to any program or system, or 5-3-1 is better than Cube, is better than Westside, is better than whatever. Really, the program that's best is the one that you'll do. So you're going to be able to find success off of pretty much any program that you choose, provided that it has some simple basic structures to that. We talked about the progression, and we talked about the overload. So as long as it has some element of progression and overload, and you have the opportunity to sufficiently recover, you're going to progress. That's kind of how things work. It's just, obviously, there are programs that are more optimal based on what your goal is, and more optimal based on kind of your development as an individual as well. So those are some things to consider. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend one program over another. You really have to kind of dabble and play. The last thing that I would say is, whatever program that you do choose, stay with it for a while. Don't get on a program for 4 weeks and be like, oh, well, this is crap, it's not working. It's probably not the program's fault. It's probably your fault. So if you're going to pick a program, stay dedicated to it, and run it out for a duration of time, 20 weeks, maybe more. Because it really is, as an adult athlete, it takes a good amount of time to really see that adaptation form and really be able to get tangible results.
Yeah, so. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, don't be afraid to screw up. So all of us have been there. Some exercise work for people, some don't, but that's kind of your job to figure it out, and that's part of the fun of it. So don't be afraid to do that. Just be smart about training, and just look at it as a long-term investment, 6, 12, 18 months, and you'll be set.
Yeah, and how many times have you had someone say, like, oh, your program's crap?
Probably weekly.
You know what I mean? And so, like, is it really the program?
No, usually it's... I mean, I've written some bad programs for sure, some things I look back on, but majority of the time it's when people have a disrupted schedule, aren't sleeping, they're traveling too much, they went out last night and stayed out too late, or whatever. So the biggest thing is consistency, and as long as you can achieve consistency, it does not have to be fancy. People got strong for decades squatting and deadlifting in basement gyms wearing blue jeans. Does not have to be fancy, and it's not going to be pretty or flashy or gimmicky. So just pick some hard exercises, push yourself, and just be consistent and dedicated, and you'll be good.
Seems like a pretty good place to end it. Yeah, so hey, I appreciate the question coming through on the Instagram story. I'm going to do more of these in the future, so if you guys don't already follow me on Instagram, please go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Brad_Arbic, and whenever these pop up, feel free to hit me up with your questions. Even if I don't have a story or whatever, feel free to message me or ping me whenever and ask me questions. The point of the channel is to have an opportunity and a platform to be able to help as many people as I can with the experience that I have. So that's really the goal. So every time I get a question, or every time someone's willing to reach out to me to ask me for my help, I'm really honored by it. So please keep it up, guys. And thanks for the opportunity to answer this question. Anyway, that's it. We're going to wrap it up. I appreciate you guys checking out the video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave it in the chat box below. I will be sure to respond. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. I definitely appreciate the channel's been growing leaps and bounds. Every day, new people are jumping in, and it just means the world to me. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Remember, no matter what you think you can't do, train despite. Either find an excuse or you find a way. We'll see you in the next one.